Hello everyone, it's Melanie. Today I have another little scrappy, using up scraps of paper idea. After I made the ruffle tabs, showed you how to make those, I started playing with just making little tabs out of paper and just using strips of paper as the tab instead of having to use something that if you don't have a tab punch or you don't have a Cricut or something to cut the shapes out with. So this is extremely elementary, very simple, but I just love ways to use up tiny bits of scraps, and I love ways to add color to my journals and stuff. So these are literally just strips of paper. I started cutting them about 1 inch wide, and make sure when you cut your strips that the grain of the paper, remember the direction that it folds really easily, the grain of the paper runs parallel to the fold. So all I've been doing is literally I made some out of cardstock, some out of this paper that I got at the thrift store, folding it in half lengthwise, and then just cutting it into kind of random lengths. So I make a bunch of these little strips, and then today, right before I started making this video, I thought, oh, I could also make them out of vellum, and that way if you put them on a page, I don't know, it's a little more transparent on the page on the opposite side. So I made a few strips out of vellum also, and you can once you make your strips like this, you could either score it on your scoreboard, right down the center, or you could just, you can fold them by hand. And if you've cut your paper with the grain running the right direction, they should be pretty easy to fold. So I just prepped up a bunch of these, and I just cut them to kind of random lengths like that. And then I went through my scrap bin. Here's the ones I've made so far. Those aren't sewn. Then I went through my scrap bin. Let me pull that out. I recently divided my scraps into 2 bins. This should go in the other bin. One is scrapbook paper, and then one is all the other paper. So this is my scrap bin, and if I go kind of down into the bottom, pieces like this, this is, when you cut this off the top, and what am I trying to say? You know what this is, that top edge, sometimes it has like the designer's name and everything on it. Those are good. Just all these little bits, little strips. And then if I go down to the very bottom, I can usually find things that fell down. That's a good size, good size. That's a good size. Yeah, there's a piece. Oh, that's got something. There's a little bitty piece. It's a little piece of paper rickrack. But there's all kinds of things that have fallen down to the bottom. So you can truly just use, I just love using up all these little bits of paper. I've never worked with miniatures or done anything really with miniatures, but I think I would like it because I would like working on a small scale, working with little things. And here's some strips. These are strips left over from the other tabs that I had pulled out. So anyway, just just go through your scrap bin and collect some bits and pieces. They're kind of small. And then since I made my tab base about 1 inch wide or 1.5, you could also do it 1.5. Sorry, I had to put that back. Then I kind of go through, or what I had been doing, I kind of go through and cut these into little strips. not more than an inch wide, I would say, you know, little strips and pieces. But I also had been sort of doing this kind of as I go, because I like making these as I go. The other thing that I made a bunch of were some tiny little strips, some really skinny strips, like 1/4 of an inch or 1/2 inch. So little bitty strips like this. And the reason being, when I put them on the tab, I can stitch right on this tiny piece of paper, and it sort of marks my stitching line. It tells me where to stitch. Since the tab is so small and I stitch it, I fold it, and then I'm stitching. Okay, let's see. See, here's the fold. There's the fold. And then when I stitch this, I'm going to mark my stitching line with this little skinny piece of paper. So I'm going to stitch right there. And if I didn't have that there and I stitched, you know, since you stitch it open and flat, I wouldn't want to accidentally stitch over my fold line. So it kind of just marks my stitching line for me, if that makes sense. So let me put a couple of these together and show you what I mean. And then I can stitch a couple of them, and then we can glue a couple in the book. So I just layer them up from here based on, you know, just the pieces of paper that I pulled out. Oh, I like this one. I just cut a strip. That's about, what, 3/4? Yeah, 3/4 of an inch wide. So I could layer that on there. This is on a vellum strip. Layer that on there, and then I could get my circles and stuff that I've punched and put a little circle on there, and then maybe a piece of this red. Let's put it right there. And if you wanted, since this is an inch wide, this vellum strip is an inch wide, so I know that if the piece or whatever the scraps are that I put on here don't extend past this edge, then that's only going to be a tab that's only going to extend like a 1/2 inch off the page. In this case, you know, since, well, it only extends, yeah, that's like a 1/2 inch. That strip may be 1.5 inches, but some of them extend quite a bit longer. But it'll make sense when you put them together. So then I just layer this up, snip that off, put a little paper clip on there. Oops, I just pulled that one apart. This one I have, sometimes I just go through my scraps and punch things out of the paper that's in my scrap bin. So this is just some cardstock scrapbook paper, a 2-inch circle that I cut in half. So I can stick that on there, and then I put that piece on, and then just clip it. So you could build these up, layer them with whatever you want to. One thing I did do that I thought was kind of cute was when I layered some of the pieces up, I took some of my shaped scissors. What do you call these? I can't remember. That cut, you know, patterns. So this one's a scallop, so I put a piece on there and I just cut a little scallop on it. I have like these pinking edge, so I could pink the edge of that, and you could do it before or after, but then see the little edge is pinked, so it just adds a little interest. There's another one that has part of it's pinked on the edge. The other thing you could do if you wanted to before you stitch it is to round the corners. If you want the corners of your tab rounded, you could, did this go on here? Round them with, you know, your corner rounder, because if you put them on, once you sew them on, it's too late to round the corner with a typical corner rounder. I'll show you something that I came up with though a minute ago, where you could round the corner after the fact. So let me grab the machine and I'll show you this. I'm sewing these together the exact same way that I did the ruffles in the last video. So same thing, but when I put this in the machine, I'm going to use that little strip of paper as a guide to where to stitch, to make sure that I stay on the side of the tab that I'm supposed to be on. Like I said, I mean, this is way too much effort to go to just make some silly little paper tabs, but I think it's a fun way to add some color and whatnot, so, and some pattern and that kind of thing. So there's that. And I'll just snip these apart. I need to be using these. I try to always use thread snips for thread and scissors for other things because I cut my finger the other day using scissors to cut thread. Okay, so then I have these, and I think these would be perfect in my little golden book journal that so this one, and I was going to say too, this kind of tab, since it's paper, it would work best, I think, on a book where the foredge of the text block is recessed inside the book cover. If your pages come all the way out, like here's my other, if your pages come all the way out to the edge of the book cover, you really wouldn't want a paper tab sticking out past that, because it would just get, you know, the fabric really doesn't matter because it just gets more, you know, worn and tattered and looks cool. But I wouldn't really want a paper tab sticking out past the edge of my cover. But you can do whatever you want to. So this little golden book journal has a number of pages that have that are recessed, and then they're all recessed further back than the cover. And I don't use these tabs necessarily to write on. I just kind of use them to decorate the pages. But when you're going through your book, or when you're going through your book or you're working through your journal or whatnot, I think we're all very visual, and having, you know, you can pick up your book and remember, oh, I was just past the red polka dot tab, or, you know, you can flip to the yellow tab, or, you know, even though it doesn't have anything written on it. So then I just glue that and fold it across, glue that down, and it gives you a way to add some tabs to your book after the fact. I think I'm gonna glue a couple more on. The other thing I was gonna show you that I thought of, I was trying to figure out, you know, once I stitch this, how I could go in and round the corners if I didn't do it first off. And I was trying all kinds of things, but then I thought about okay, so these scissors, this is just like a ripple or a wave. So if I take these scissors and just clip the edge of my tab like that, you see it? Then it rounds the corner. And the more effort you put into lining up, you know, where you want the edges of your tab, then you could round corners with some wavy, ripply scissors like that. So just another fun way. I'll show you, let's see, I've got some in here that I used teeny tiny pieces of paper. You know, the only thing about, well, not only, there's all kinds, but one thing about making things with such tiny, oh, that had something on the other side. I should have put a vellum one on there. Doesn't matter. One thing about using such tiny bits of paper like this is it doesn't really make much of a dent in your stash, in your scraps. But there's some of these that like here, I just stitched, you know, that's literally the tiniest piece of paper, you know, just stitched in there. There was another one. There's one this one, I thought this one was cute. So that's something I punched, and then let's see, and if I wanted to round these corners, and I don't have my glasses on, but you could, so I could round the corners like that, and then glue this on. So I like the idea of having these tabs ready to go for when I'm working in my journal rather than putting them on in the beginning, because then as I work through my journal, I could put, you know, a tab on that matches the page, you know, depending on what I put on that page or that kind of thing. Those that I just stuck on were all single-sided and plain on the back, but a lot of these have are double-sided paper, scrapbook paper, so they'll have something on the front and the back. So that's what I have for you today, guys. I hope that's helpful. Another way to use up your stash, but not necessarily a very big piece of it, using such tiny little pieces. But very, very simple. There's nothing to it. Just a fun way to add some color and some interest to your pages, especially after the fact. This would be fun to do, I think, too, on an altered book, like a book that you don't necessarily rebind, but a book that you use the original book pages, the way that they're bound. And this I'm pretty excited about, being able to round corners with these scissors. I think these are Fiskars. No, they're not. The handle's a different shape, because that's the Fiskars handle shape. So I'm not sure where I got these. I've had these since the scrapbooking days years ago. But if you don't have anything like this, you could round the corners with a corner rounder, you know, before. I guess you can do it like that. You could round the corners with a corner rounder if you can get to it. Some of these I couldn't, like this, because that hangs out over the edge of this. I couldn't put that in the corner rounder. So some of them I guess you can. That I can't, because that sticks out further. Some of them you can't. Anyway, enjoy, guys. And thanks for all the sweet comments on the last couple of videos. You've inspired me. Now I want to share more of my quilts with you, because sewing is my first love. Definitely, that's my biggest passion. So now I have plans to share some of my quilting stuff with you, because if you sew, quilting is really easy, and it's so relaxing, and it's so fun, and it's so rewarding. And you know, if you like this kind of stuff, junk journaling, quilting, especially like scrappy quilting, would just be, you would love it. You would love it. So thanks for joining me today, guys, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.